Hey guys, our decline here, average picker. Got this weird heavenly glare going on behind me. I might have to do something about that. But I wanted to start out this video by just giving a shout out and congratulations to Geo. He just the other day picked Evva MCS second generation lock. So yeah, big congrats there. Geo is an amazing picker, by the way. I don't know why you'd be subscribed to me and not subscribed to him yet. But if that's the case, you need to check his channel out, and I'll put a link to that Evva pick. It's got just some amazing picks on his channel. He's an incredible picker. I think Geo is also the one he walked through the best competition a while back on the subreddit. Yeah, he's just amazing. And if you don't know the Evva MCS, I don't really understand it quite myself. It's like a magnetic lock, basically. It has like a series of magnets across it that somehow interact with like these rotors. So it's like this magnetic rotor lock. But he's got the video is great. He's got great breakdown of all the parts and everything in it. And it's just fantastic. So congrats, man. And you know, here I am still struggling with this little ICO dimple lock, trying to poke through that. So there we go. Congratulations again. Had a lock come in that I kind of forgot about. I ordered it. It was a bit of a mystery lock from the description. I thought, it's cheap enough. I'll take a chance. It arrived. Like I said, I'd forgotten about it. But it's just an Omni, which I believe is made by Ilko. Throw it in here, see if we can't get a little pick off of it. So yeah, I had a conversation the other day, and it got kind of interesting. I recorded at least my end of it, and maybe I'll release that. But it was looking at the question of where are all the women in lockpicking? This should have opened already. Maybe I need to not talk. Let's talk more pick. Okay, there it goes. It's about to fall over. One more pin. No? What about you? There we go. We're in on, so that's the Omni. Pick through the plastic. Yeah, so where are all the women in lock sport? Kind of came up, and I think what we're going to do is talk about that and kind of tug on a long thread that will eventually sort of get us there. Cats weren't real happy when I closed the window. They wanted to watch the garbage men work, so I had to open it back up for them. And I don't try to hide from you guys. It just happenstance of the way filming these videos goes. So I thought maybe this would be an interesting break or change of things. So yeah, question of where are the women in lockpicking? And this came about in a conversation I was having, like I said. And if we pull on this really long thread, I think we can start to see what's going on there and get kind of just a bigger social perspective, perhaps. There's this old kind of adage that's pushed around. It's a very amateur level kind of argument about racism. And it's kind of, well, I don't own any slaves. I've never owned a slave. So, you know, everything's equal now. None of this stuff should be an issue. And if we start at that point, though, and if we look at lockpicking as maybe a microcosm of that greater picture, start to see sort of something that is happening there. And you can start to see that history does have an effect on the way today's stuff is. Now, that slavery argument, of course, ignores an awful lot of stuff. It ignores Jim Crow laws and segregation and just plain racism and things. But that's not what we're here to discuss. But that's kind of the crux of the base of all of that we're pulling at. And there's not that history there. there's not that history there to establish a whole lot of women into lock sport. So I've got a neighbor, and he's got a kid. And a couple years ago, I took him down to the airfield where I run the dog sometimes, because it's a remote control airplane field, and I thought he'd get a kick out of watching them run the nitro choppers, and had a great time. And it's a great bunch of guys down there. They had a one of the guys actually had a laptop at the time with a copter simulator on it. Simulates the remote control helicopters, and they set him up on it, and he got to play that. Now, that airfield demographically is predominantly black membership, and neighbor's black as well. And I think he was about 12 probably at the time. He didn't come away from that thinking, oh, I want to fly nitro choppers, this is really cool. I mean, he enjoyed it, but that wasn't suddenly a hobby he wanted to get in. But what he did come away from that with, and I found it kind of eye-opening in a way, was he said something about, oh, I thought that was a white guy sport, or I thought that was a white guy thing. And what that did, though, do was you could see it triggered something, and it piqued some interests for him in other areas, avenues that he may have thought otherwise were limited. And we can see this time and again throughout a whole number of things. Now, it was brought up in the conversation I was having about magicians and magic and sleight of hand stuff and all that. And we know that field also heavily historically dominated, male dominated. There was magic clubs and stuff, but a lot of these were all off limits as far as females. And what females you do tend to find practicing magic today, they usually had some kind of male figure in their life that got them through and allowed them to break through. Or the really new ones saw them perform. So you may have a woman, her father got her into it because he was a magician, and then pass along a couple generations or whatever, and someone's looking back at her and seeing her break into it and going, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. So with lock sport, where does all this figure in? I'm not saying that there's not women in lock sport. Now, I haven't gone to a whole lot of events, but ones I have gone to, and from people I've talked to and just other things I've done, there is interest there. That's for sure. Sorry, I thought something was going on. I had to do a little cut. But yeah, I think there is interest there. And as I was saying, at what events I have been to or done, or people I've talked to, demographically, it feels very mixed as far as interest level goes. So that's really keeps begging the question, kind of, well, where are they all? Well, there's not a history there, for one. We could probably get into the history of locksmithing, but locksmithing is a predominantly, was a predominantly male industry. So again, you're missing those role models to look back on, and that kind of keeps it in its demographic. So I forget where I was. I had to make another cut. So yeah, that history is not there to pull from. Now, the other thing we know too is, despite all our advancements and despite all our gains, women in the workforce still come home and are largely responsible for doing a lot of the household chores. And lockpicking does take time. And I'm just as guilty of this. I have sat here and picked locks while, dinners were being prepared and dishes were being washed and things like that. I'm well aware of it. So you've got a time issue. And then if you add into that making videos, posting online, even as kind of lo-fi as I tend to do it, it's time consuming. The time's just not there for a lot of them, likely. Now you can make the argument, well, women have hobbies. But if you look and trace a lot of those hobbies, a lot of them have footprints or origins in some kind of household work. There's large knitting circles and there's quilting circles, sewing groups, even reading, and to some extent music. If you really push it back, a lot of women did learn to play a musical instrument and things, but that was also used as household entertainment when you were entertaining and things. Put them on the harpsichord, have the play. We could pull it up even. We don't have to go all the way back to the harpsichord. But you see what is being established there is there's a large chunk of hobbies and just kind of extra little activities that you would do that are much more in line with things in the house, or things taking care of children, or just things providing for. Now, little side note, if we jump around for a minute, I think it's kind of interesting. Originally with movies, editing was considered to be women's work because it was likened to sewing. And then that experienced kind of a weird flip at one point. But there was a point in Hollywood history where pretty much most of your film editors were women. Just a little interesting side note there, I think. The division of gender roles I find kind of interesting in general. Now, of course, all this starts to beg the question of, well, how do we get more women into lock sport? And that I don't have a good answer to. I am not that great at recruiting, or necessarily always breaking out of my own demographic. It would be cool if I was some kind of expert on that, but I'm just not. But you could encourage it. You can do what you can do. I don't know, maybe one day set the significant other down with a lock and you go do the dishes and set them up on a video filming it, maybe? I don't know. But the more we can get out there, the more it's going to attract, because the more girls and women and stuff are going to start looking at it and saying, hey, I can do that too. That's really cool. And that's kind of how I got just into lock sport, because I was watching, I saw some people pick some locks and I went, let me try that. Bet I can do that. The mystique veil was suddenly lifted a little bit from the locks, and I went, let's give that a shot. And that's very likely how a lot of you out there got interested in it. So we know that works, right? I mean, if you can get rid of that and get the person some time, and maybe they don't have an interest in it, that's fine, whatever. I'm not looking at it from that point of view. But cultivate those interests if it is there. I think it's a weird thing to get involved in too, and it's no tiny coincidence that I decided to tack congratulations to Geo on the end of this. 'Cause it can be a little weird getting out there and doing this publicly, I guess. And by publicly, I mean shooting videos and things like that, and engaging, whether it's at events or just across the community as a whole with videos. Because when you are starting out, you're down, and I don't have one sitting around here. You're down in some lower level locks, and you think, oh, why is anybody going to be interested in seeing what I'm picking when there's people picking up here, right? Like, why are they going to be interested in this when there's this? And that, I have sometimes wondered if that's part of the allure of the challenge locks, because they're just all over the place and they're all different. And so it's something you can kind of do. It keeps this abstractness around the whole thing. But realize what you're doing. I mean, even if it is that you're picking way down here, you still got something to contribute. And you are still providing something for somebody to see and then go, if you can do it, maybe I can do it. So that role model potential is still there, and you're breaking through those historical barriers and things and doing something that would be great and would bring some variety into lock sport and lock picking in general. I think it's good, and I started my channel probably way too early. And in some aspects, maybe not early enough, but I think it's a good thing to have even more low-level videos out there. Yeah, you know, it might not be super interesting for some people, but it's those few that it's going to catch, and it's going to provide a realistic look on things. You're not going to have everybody looking up and going, oh my gosh, you know, because at some level that becomes intimidating. You need people to be able to look horizontally straight across and say, yeah, that seems perfectly reasonable. And if they stick with it or try it or don't stick with it, whatever, but that material's out there, and you've at least done a small part to lend yourself to that. So anyway, I don't want this video to run too long. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit of insight into where all the women in lockpicking are. And congrats again to Geo on his pick. And I'm going to give another shout out real quickly to Shackle Jackal's channel, because Shackle Jackals looks like he's taken off pretty good with the picking. I think he just went through a Primus, which I've got one in here. Yeah, those side pins are no joke. Especially, it's kind of a wall pick, I think. Like right when you first hit those little side pins on something like a Primus, there's not a whole lot out there for how to deal with it. So it's a wall, you know. You have to all of a sudden try to figure out your way around it, building off kind of what you already know, and without the immense amount and the balloon of documentation that we have for, you know, some of the other things. So yeah, congrats to him again too. And yeah, maybe we'll get something picked. I don't know. I've got way too many projects going on at the moment. But yeah, there we go. You guys have a good one.